So the next piece of the Gemara, that the Gemara is asking a question, Tosfos points out, it's not going on the halacha of the Mishnah, because the Gemara is about to ask right now, Shneim, if it's done through two people, P'turin, they're exempt, which you could think it's referring to the halacha of the Mishnah, which the Mishnah says that if they're each doing half, they're going to be patur. Tosfos is just very important, points out that the Gemara in the next daf start talking about the reish of the Mishnah. It can't be talking about the sefer. Rather, the Gemara's question right now is going on the inference of the Gemara we just said. The Gemara just said that what did we mention in the sefer? Pituri de asa de chiyuva, only exemptions that could come to liability that we mentioned. So that's what the Gemara's question is. Wait a second, it's only asa de chiyuva, but it's not actual chiyuva? Frek the Gemara, that's what the Gemara asked. Why not? But the malacha was done by the two of them. As Tosfos points out, the Gemara's question is not that the first one should be chayiv. It's not logical that the first one should be chayiv because of what the second one did. But the second one who finished it off, now through two people doing it, why is he patur? Why shouldn't he be chayiv? Because a malacha was done through two people. So because more people were involved, you're going to be patur? That's the Gemara's question. The Gemara assumes if two people are doing it, so let them either both be liable or let the second one be liable. Says the Gemara, no, talking in the Brisa. Rabbi Shloimy says, the pasuk in the Yikra, that says regarding to the carbon chatas, it says in the pasuk of the Yikra, it says if a person is going to make a sin by mistake, so it says the mi'ama aretz, from one of the people of the land, ba'asaisa, when he does it. What does it mean ba'asaisa when he does it? It says it means ha'isa is kula. Only if you do the whole malacha, v'lo ha'isa is miktsas, and not if you do part of it. Like Tosfos says, although the simple translation of the pasuk is going on the person, whoever does it, but the Gemara expounds it to say on the malacha. Ba'asaisa means ba'asais oisa. If you do the whole thing, meaning yachad va'asa oisa chayiv. If you're an individual doing the whole malacha, then you're going to be chayiv. And this is a very important halacha in Hilchas Shabbos. Shnayim va'asu oisa paturin. Two people who do it, then you're actually going to be patur. And therefore, when two people do it, you're going to be patur. It manam so too. We learned there. This is nizukum and pi chabura. It was thrown out from the mouths of the chabura of the group. But they said this halacha, when it says in the pasuk about say so, when he does it, it means yachad shasa chayv. When the individual does it, you can be chayv. Shnayim shasu b'tur. When two people do it, they're going to be patur. Which interesting. Tosfos, he says, how you bring a raya from Amiram to a brisa? Don't we always say a brisa is mochashav? Why bring a raya from the nizukum and pi chabura to a brisa we just quoted? It was a brisa. So either he says because actually no, the chabur was tanoim, or he says that no, because this was it was a brisa that wasn't a certified brisa from the brisa of Rabbi and Rabbi Shia. There were many tanoim that weren't the authoritative ones. Therefore, we can actually bring raya from Amiram like that brisa, which is the halacha that we see that when two people do a malach on Shabbos, they're actually going to be patur. Now we continue with the.
We don't do that, no, because like when you have a chayfer guma, a chayfer bar, and somebody falls, the person who did the last tefach,
right, exactly. By other things, like we see by when you kill someone, when someone digs a pit, as the Gemara's question was, the second one, as Tosfos explained, should be chayiv. But here we see by Melachas of Shabbos, that's the Gzeis HaKasa, Ba'asaisa, is to say Ba'asais Aisa. Now the Gemara continues in an interesting discussion now. We spoke about that when you do the Malacha B'Yitzah, you have to do the Akira, you have to pick it up, and you have to do the Hanacha. So now the Gemara asks, what's considered an Akira? Ba'yimnei Rav Mirebi. So what's the halacha? Let's say a person was standing his body in Rosh Hashanah, in a private house. Hitinu chaver, and then his friend goes and loads him up. So the person himself never did akira, he didn't pick up anything. But his friend puts, let's say, a loaf of bread, oichel namashkin, food items or beverages, which Rashi just points out, that's just the normative way that's what people need on Shabbos. So he's here, take some food, and he's putting it on his shoulder, or he puts it maybe in his pocket. And people normally involved with food items in Shabbos. So the guy puts it on his shoulder, here, take a piece of kugel. He thinks he's staying over there by the Kiddush. And then he forgets he has it on his shoulder, and now he carries it outside. What's the halacha? What's the question? The Gemara explains. Do we say akira's gufay when he picks up his body, meaning when he lifts up his feet from the house after he was loaded up? Is that kakira's chayvetz mimkayme dami? Is that the same like picking up an object from its place, which that's as the Rambam rules as we rule? Umechayv and going to be liable because he did an akira. You don't have to pick it up with your hands. You picked it up by moving your body, so it's lifting up the food item. Or maybe no. Amalei said chayev, he's going to be liable because it is considered like picking up the object. And you cannot compare it to the hand. Meaning, the Gemara is alluding to a question. One of the cases in the Mishnah was if the ani, the guy on the outside, Rosh Hashanah, stretches out his hand inside, and his body's on the outside. So we said if the balabayas puts his hand, and this is the case that we're talking about. So you have the ani over here. The ani is stretching out his hand inside. The balabais is putting something inside. So the Mishnah said, he's going to be patur. Now, although when we say this case in the Mishnah, we're saying that the Balabayas is pater because he didn't do a hanacha in Rishus Harabim, the Ani did that. But inherent in that case too is you're telling me that the Ani is pater. The Ani is pater? Why is he pater? Right over here, when he gets it in here, so he's moving of the hand is akiras chayfetz memkaimedami. Why is it different than over here? You told me when you put it on his shoulder. He never did akira. But when he picks up his body and he walks outside, you tell me he's doing akira. Now when he stops, it's hanacha. So why in this case of the Mishnah did you say they're both going to be pater? When he has it, forget about this guy, the Balabais. He goes back doing his thing. The Ani now, when he pulls his hand back out, isn't that an akira also? And now he puts it down, that's hanacha? He should be chayiv. He did akira and hanacha. Why is it different than his body? Oh, and that says the Gemara. No, it's not the same thing. Says the Gemara, my time, what's the reason? Kufa, his body is nayich, is at rest on the ground. You're it's stationary. On the ground. With gravity, you're just static. So when you move your body, that's considered akira. Yadi, his hand, loy nayich. That's not at rest. He have to actively hold your hands up. When you move your hand, you never did an akira, and therefore that's not the way of Itzah, because you have to do akira and hanacha, because your hand over here is not considered in stationary, because it's a continuation of the original akira that the Balabais did, and therefore yes, here he's going to be pater, but here he's going to be chayiv. Now there's another girsa that Tais is busy with, and Rashi brings it down, and he says no, because yadei basa gufa greira, the hand we don't view as its own thing, we view it as part of the body. So therefore, he never really did an akir from here. We view him as part of his body, which is over here, which Rashi says not to have the girsa because it's superfluous. Taisus is busy with it. But either way it is that there's a difference between the yad and the guf. So by akira's gufa is kakiras cheves, you can be chayiv, but moving the hand is not considered an akir. Now we continue to with Beis. Parenthetically, the Gemara says, Amali Reb Chia l'Rav. Reb Chia said to Rav, who had asked this question to Rebbe, what's the halacha? Do we say akiras gufa is kakiras cheves or not? He said, wait, Bar Pachsi, son of nobility, son of great people. Didn't I tell you, Kikoi Rebbe b'hamesechta, when Rebbe's involved in one mesechta, loy teshayli b'mesechta achriti. Don't ask him, and it's actually halacha l'maisa. Don't ask him a question in another mesechta. Dimalava daite. Maybe he's not going to be focusing on it. He's not in that mesechta right now. He's going to be embarrassed. Do you love the Rebbe Gava Rabbu? If not for Rebbe being such a great personage, Kesafti would have embarrassed him. You would ask him a question. The Mishani lach shenu, you love shenu. He would answer a question. It's not really a good question. He's a good answer because he's not in the sugi right now. Now, hashtami ashap Mishani lach, but he gave you a good answer because the time like in the Brisa the way Rebbe answered. The Brisa says if he was loaded up, someone else, if he loaded himself up, stuff, food and beverages on his shoulder from before Shabbos, which that's the same case that was asked of Rebbe essentially. When his friend loads him up on Shabbos, either case is talking about that he didn't do a prohibited akira on Shabbos, either because he loaded himself up from before Shabbos, or because his friends load him up. But either way, you didn't do a prohibited akira on Shabbos. What does the Brisa say? And once it becomes nighttime, he then goes out with it. Chayiv, he's chayiv because he did an akira's gufa. He picked up his body. And says the Brisa, because it's not the same as his hand, which is stretched out inside, and his body's on the outside. And his friend put something inside of it, although that guy didn't do the hanacha. But why didn't you say that this guy is moving his hand, and that's considered the akira? We say that's not considered as an akira because your hand is not considered at rest. Now, based on this discussion, the Gemara continues with another related halacha. So that's going to be, we're going to see in the later sugi, there are those who want to say that walking is also considered mahalach ka'imedami. Walking is like staying. But most opinions don't hold like that because you're in transition. But when your body's that's in stationary positioning, that would be considered like you're putting it down. And that would not be considered in transition. Now, Abai says the following halacha. He says, Pshitli says, it's obvious to me from the halacha of our Mishnah that we just described right now, that yadi shaladam, a person's hand that's stretched out into another domain, Eina is not considered as if it's connected to his body totally, to be like the domain that person's body is standing in. Like Rishus Harabim, not like the Rishus Harabim, but like Rishus Yachad, and not the Rishus Yachad. In other words, wherever this person's body is, when his hand is stretched out into another domain, you don't consider the hand as if it's in the same domain as the person's body. Where do you see this? So the Gemara explains. Rishus Harabim Dami, I could prove to you it's not like if the person's in Rishus Harabim, that his hand in another domain is like Rishus Harabim, miyadi di ani. From the case of the hand of the poor person, one of the cases in the Mishnah we learned that when the Balabayas if the ani goes, it's not in this slide, but if the balabai, if the ani sticks his hand into the rishus hayachid with food, and the balabais takes it from his hand, we said that the balabais is going to be pater because the ani did the akira, and the balabais did just the hanacha. Wait a second. If the person's hand is considered like part of his body, which actually according to those gestois, like Taisa brought that it's talking about that your hand is like considered like connected to your body, therefore it's not considered at rest, then you're essentially taking from Rishus HaRabim. When he stretches his hand in, if let's say this line, the top of my Gemara is the next domain. So when I stretch it out over here, and I'm the ani, the Balabais takes this from me, if my hand is considered connected to my body, he's taking it from Rishus HaRabim. Because although my hand is in Rishus HaYachid, but my hand is considered part of my body, and he's taken from Rishus HaRabim, why are you saying that he's pater? Obviously, because we don't consider his hand as the Rishus HaRabim, because it's not in Rishus HaRabim right now, it's in the Rishus HaYachid. So too says the Gemara, Rishus HaYachid le'dami. It's also that the person's hand is not going to be like the Rishus HaYachid, if let's say his hand is stretched out into the Rishus HaRabim, miyodid the balabais, in the case of the hand of the balabais. When we said, if let's say the balabais goes and stretch out his hand into Rishus HaRabim, and the ani takes it from him, so he said both are pater, because each one's doing only half of the malacha. One's doing the ki, one's doing hanacha. But wait a second. If you say the hand is considered connected to the body, the ani is taking really from Rishus HaYachid. So he's doing an akira and hananacha, because he's taking from there. You see that? No, we don't consider that the hand is like the domain where the body's in, whether it be Rishus HaYachid or Rishus HaRabim. But based on this, the Abaya has the following question. Yadish al-Adam, the person's hand, now that we see that the hand is not considered as if it's in the same domain as the body, regarding the Chiyuv D'Oraisa, regarding being liable for Haitzah, so obviously we see that it's considered almost like its own domain. So what's the halacha? Are we so stringent, rabbinically shatastic at Carmelis, that we should make the person's hand like its own rabbinic prohibited area, like a Carmelis? So if let's say a person stretches out his hand full into another domain, which as we see in this slide, where maybe the halacha should be that he's not allowed to go ahead and take it back into the domain where he is. And he should have to leave it stretched out until it's Matzah Shabbos, because since you're saying that his hand is not considered part of his body, so maybe we said it has its own rabbinic prohibited area known as a Carmelis, which in general the Rabbanan made certain cases rabbinically prohibited, and therefore you wouldn't be able to take, you can't, like a Carmelis, which is let's say like open fields, you're not allowed to carry from a Carmelis to Rishus Yachid to Rishus HaRabim, as the Gemara says later on, Vav Meraf, that the 4 different domains on Shabbos. And Rashi here explains, where does the word Carmelis come from? It's like a pasuk in Yeshaya, Ya'oreh b'Carmelai, which is like the forest, the open fields. It's not where people normally walk. And it's not considered like a Rishus HaYachid or Rishus HaRabim. So Abayi's question is, maybe if we don't consider the hand like in your domain, now it's neither the domain that you're sticking it into, maybe we make it like a Carmelis. And as the Gemara explains, did the rabbis penalize him that he's not allowed to go out and take his hand back because he started doing the prohibited malacha, he did the akira part, so maybe because he did already have the malacha, which is rabbinically prohibited, we penalize him, and now he cannot take his hand back, because now you're essentially taking from like a rabbinically prohibited area, like a Carmelis, back to your Rishus HaYachid or Rishus HaRabim. You're not allowed to do that. Or maybe not. Says the Gemara, Tashma Tzvinga, right from the following brisa. Brisa says, this exact case, if his hand was full with produce, and now he extends it outward to the other domain, so Tanichad, we learn in one brisa, aslachzir, now take your hand back. But Tanidach, we learn another brisa, no mutlachzir, you're allowed to take your hand back. Says the Gemara, so in my lav, isn't it obviously talking about these 2 different brises that B'Hakim Mivlagi? This is what their machlekes is regarding the question of Abaya. The Marsav at the time of the first brisa holds Carmelis damu. We consider the person's hand like as if it's a Carmelis, and therefore you're not allowed to take your hand back. Marsav at the time of the second brisa says no love Carmelis damu. It's not like a Carmelis, and therefore you're allowed to take your hand back. Isn't that the machlekes that they're having? Says the Gemara, no, that's not the case. The Kuliyama, because everyone holds when you stretch out your hand into another domain, Carmelis dami. It is like a Carmelis. Because we said it's not like the domain that you're stretching it from, and therefore we're going to make it rabbinically prohibited. But Valakasha, so then isn't it difficult? The second brisa says you're allowed to take your hand back? Says the Gemara, no. Kan, over here by the first brisa says Aser, is lamata me'asara. It's when it's lower down than 10 tefachim. We said this in the introduction to this Masech, to this parak. We said that the airspace of Rishus HaRabim only goes up until 10 tefachim in Rishus HaRabim. So if you stretch it out within 10 tefachim from the ground, so then the Rabbanan penalize you because you did a prohibited malacha taken from Rishus HaYachid, you did half of the akira part, putting it into Rishus HaRabim. Then we said, there it's a Carmelis and you cannot take it back. By kan lamala masar, and this is actually halach lamaisa. When you stretch your hand out above 10 tvachim into Rosh Hashanah, that's considered the airspace of a makom pater. Like the Mishnah teaches in Hazoik later on the Kufim Manav, if you throw something 4 amos on the wall, if it's above 10 tvachim, it's like throwing it in the airspace and you're going to be pater, because Rosh Hashanah only goes up until 10 tvachim. So therefore they didn't penalize you because you didn't do anything wrong. Now Taisa actually asked a question. He says, wait a second. If you're telling me the brisa that says that you're allowed to take your hand back is when you did above 10 tvachim, why are you saying that he's allowed to take his hand back? He didn't do anything wrong. According to the halacha, if you're allowed to move something above 10 tvachim, it's a malkum patur. So why is he allowed to take your hand back? You're allowed to even do it likatchila. Taisa actually says that you're right. The chiddush of that brisa, you're allowed to take your hand back, Lamal Masar is talking about, where even when you did it, you stretch out your hand within 10 tvachim, you're allowed to pick up your hand and take it back above 10 tvachim, because then you're not doing anything wrong. That's the case of Lamal Masar. But be that as it may, that's one approach to say that no, they're not disagreeing. They all hold that it's like a karmelis. Now the Gemara says, if you want, you can say the opposite. You can say idi. Actually, both cases are lamata masar. You stretch out your hand within 10 tvachim. V'lavka karmelis dami, and actually is not considered like a karmelis to be like its own domain, and still v'lakash, not difficulty. Kan, the second brisa said that it's mutter that if you stretched out your hand miba'oid yoim, if you stretched out your hand from before Shabbos, so then when it turns Shabbos on Friday night, you're allowed to take your hand back. Why? Because we're saying they all hold it's not a karmelis, so it's not like its own domain. Rather, it's considered like part of your body. So you didn't do anything wrong. What'd you do? You stretched out your hand from before Shabbos. You didn't do any prohibited akira. And now to bring your hand back, of course, we consider it not a separate domain. We consider it as where your body is. But Khan, the first brisa that said it's aser is when you stretch out your hand meshachashecha. You did this first half of stretching out when it was already dark, it was already Shabbos, as the Gemara explains. If you stretched out your hand from before Shabbos, so you didn't do anything wrong, and it's not considered as its own domain, so like the Rabbanan did not penalize him, so he's allowed to take his hand back. But if he stretched out his hand when it was already dark, then the Rabbanan penalized him, like as Rashi explains, not to make it its own domain, because they're saying everyone agrees it does not become a karmelis, but simply because you did something wrong, because you did the first half of the malacha, therefore the Rabbanan penalized you, and you're not allowed to go ahead and take your hand back. Now the Gemara asks an interesting question, which takes us into a different discussion. The Gemara says that Adarabam, that to the contrary, that the logic would actually tell me the opposite of what you just answered. And this is actually halach l'maisa. When you stretch out your hand miba'oid yoim, when it's still during the daytime, where if you're going to say that it's prohibited for him to take his hand back, and shadile, he's going to drop it and he's going to throw it out of his hand so that, because he can't hold it the whole Shabbos, lo yasa dechiv chatas. He's not going to come to a karma chatas because he didn't do a prohibited akira on Shabbos at all, because he did it from before Shabbos. All he's going to be doing is hanacha. And so at most he's going to be doing Issa Drabanan because he's only doing the second half of the malacha, as we learned that when two people do malacha together, it's pater, aval aser, but you're going to be pater, it's only a rabbinic problem. So then actually over there, lekansur Rabbanan, actually there the Rabbanan should penalize him, they should not be able to take his hand back because you're not going to come to Chiyav Chatas anyway. So let's penalize you not to take your hand back, because even if you say, I can't keep my hand here for the rest of Shabbos, fine, so you drop it, at the most you're going to be doing it Issa Drabanan. But when you stretch out your hand, mishachashecha, when it was already Shabbos, the ishadile, if we're going to go ahead and penalize you, and you have to keep your hand out, and he's going to say, I can't hold my hand out here all Shabbos, so he's going to drop it because you say he can't take his hand back, so it's going to come out, the asibul de chiv chatas. He's going to come to be violent chiv chatas if he had done it by mistake, because he did the akira, and now that you're not letting him take his hand back, he's going to drop it, he's going to be doing the anacha. So actually over there, loy lekantu rabban. The rabban should not penalize him, because better that you don't penalize him than to cause him to be chayiv a chil Shabbos deraisa by now doing the akira and the anacha together. So that's the Gemara's question. Isn't it better to do the other way around? I mean, you tell me you have a steer in the brises. One brise says you could take your hand back. Other brise says you cannot take your hand back. So you tell me, which is the one that you could take your hand back? If you did it from before Shabbos, you didn't do anything wrong, you take your hand back. Which is the one that say you cannot take your hand back? You did the problematic akira, you can't take your hand back. Says the Gemara, no, ipra mistabra. If the one when you stretch out your hand, you're going to tell me can't take it back, he's going to come to do a chiyav chatas. He's going to be doing that akira and anacha. Better let him take the hand back and say which one is the one, if you're going to answer the brises that you cannot take your hand back, is the one when you did it from before Shabbos. So let's penalize him because he has his hand in the wrong domain. And even if he drops it, he's not going to be doing the chiyav chatas because he only did anacha, not the akira. Says the Gemara, from the fact that you did not answer this idea and you're not concerned to answer it the other way around, Tivshid Rav Bibi Bar Abaya. This is going to resolve the question of Rav Bibi Bar Abaya that we're going to discuss at greater length on the next daf. That the Chacham were not concerned about making a rabbinic prohibition because of the concern that if a person is going to get stuck with this rabbinic prohibition, he's going to do even a more severe violation. Because what was his question? The boy Rav Bibi Bar Abaya. He asked the following question: Hidvik pas betana. Let's say a person goes and he attaches a dough to an oven on Shabbos by mistake. And he remembers, Oigevald, it's Shabbos, before it baked. Now, the Gemara tells us later on that Kufid Zayin Mabez that taking out a bread from an oven on Shabbos is at most a rabbinic violation. Because actually it's not even a malacha, it's chachma ve'ein a malacha. So at most it's a rabbinic violation. So Rabbi Barai had the following question. Did they permit someone who's going to do a rabbinic prohibition of taking out bread from an oven, l'irdaisa, to take it down before it's going to bake, and he's going to be chayiv because of a malacha of baking? Or maybe they did not permit him to take it down and take it out of the oven because the Rabbanan said, I'll do rediyah of a pas minataner. So his question was, you have two options. Either do the Rabbanan, Isser Rabbanan of taking out the bread from the oven, and then it's never going to bake, you're not going to be chayiv the Isser of Afiyah, or no, the Rabbanan say, I'll do rediyah hapas. But then you're going to violate Afiyah because you're going to end up baking. That was his question. Says the Gemara, now based on what you had answered the Brisa, that one's talking about from before Shabbos, one's talking about after Shabbos, Tivshid, you can resolve from the fact that we said that when's the case that we penalize you, the Brisa that you cannot take your hand back. It's talking about the one when you stretch it out, Meshachashecha, so you should resolve it, Deloi Hitiru, that they did not permit you to do an Issa Drabbana to save you from Issa Dairaisa. Because again, if we're going to enforce the penalty of not taking your hand back, if you stretch it out from after Shabbos started, then if you're going to enforce the Issa Drabanan, he's going to come to a Chiv Dairaisa, because he's going to drop it. And he's going to do, he did already Akira, he's going to do Akira Nanacha. Obviously, the answer is that we're not concerned for that. Says the Gemara, okay, hold on, that's not a difficulty. Yeah, but Tivshit, resolve Rabbi Barbai's question from the way we answered the Brises, that we don't let you violate Issa Drabanan to save yourself from a bigger Chiv of a Issa Dairaisa. Then the Gemara says, no, maybe you could say, actually, lo'ilam lo'i tifshit. You cannot resolve the question from these two brises. Because of kasha. Actually, it's not a difficulty because we could resolve the brise in different ways, and you won't have to say one's meba'ayim, one's meshachashecha, to prove that we're not concerned to penalize, even though it's going to come to chib daraisa. Why? Khan, over here, is talking about b'shogig. One brise is talking about that you're allowed to take your hand back as if you did it by mistake. Khan b'mezid, the brise says that you're not taking it back as if you did it deliberately. Bishagi, when you did it by mistake, look, consider Rabban, the Rabban did not penalize you. But Mesa, when you did it deliberately, then consider Rabban, then the Rabban penalized you. Now, it's just an important Rashi. I wouldn't say it unless it was necessary. Because Rashi is adding on to the Gemara over here. That it's there. It's just, Rav Bibi cannot be resolved from over here, not for Isser, not for Het. Remember, what was his question? His question was, do we let you be over Isser Rabbanan to save you from Isser Dairaisa? When we're saying that the two brises, one's talking about B'shagi, one's talking about B'mezid, that the one, when you did it by mistake, you can take your hand back, you did it by mistake, you cannot take your hand back. Why do we not penalize you when you did it by mistake? Not because we're concerned that you might come to drop it and then, you see that we let you violate the Rabbanan to save you from Issa Daraisa. No, it's simply because you didn't do anything wrong. You did it by mistake. And taking your hand back is not even Issa Rabbanan, unless for a penalty. And here we're saying you're not going to penalize you because you did it by mistake. But taking down the bread is explicit Issa Rabbanan. That was made of bona fide Issa Rabbanan. And because of that, you might come to Chiv Chatas, that they didn't stop their Issa Rabbanan. And they said that you're not allowed to do that. Now, the opposite, the Brisa that says that when you do B'mezi and not take your hand back, you also cannot resolve and say, you see that we do penalize you, and that when you do B'mezid, that the Brisa that says that we penalize you, you see that we're not concerned for the Issa Dairaisa. So and that says, Rashi says, no, because in our case, when you stretch out the hand, we don't have to be concerned that maybe you're going to drop it and become Techiv Misas Bezdin, because maybe you're not going to drop it. But here in the case of Rabbi Abaye, if we don't let you take down the bread from the oven, by default you're going to be Chayav Misas Bezdin, because it's an automatic thing that you're being Chayav on the Isser of Afiyah, and therefore you cannot resolve it from that resolution. Or the Baisem says the Gemara, another approach you could do to answer the Brises, which will not infer one's Meshachashek, one's B'bayim to resolve Rabbi Bai's question, is Idi both Brises are talking about B'shag. You did it by mistake. V'hach over here in one Brise, in both Brises, what becomes through Shagat the Mezikim. What are they disagreeing about? Is do we penalize someone who did it by mistake because on account of what if he might come to do it deliberately? Marsa, by the time the first brayse says asus comes to shagot the maze, it says you penalize when he does it by mistake because of the case when he might come to do it deliberately and therefore not take your hand back. Marsa, by the time the second brayse says it's mutter, it's like comes to shagot the maze. We didn't penalize you when you did it by mistake. Of that, you might come to do it when you did it deliberately. Or another approach you could say is la'ilam loikon. So actually, no, we never penalized you. So v'loikash is not difficult. Then if we never penalized you, why does the brayse say I'll take your hand back? And this actually halacha l'maisa too. Kan, when did we say you're allowed to take your hand back? Is la'isa chatzar, is to that courtyard where you're standing in. You're allowed to take your hand back because we didn't penalize you and did it by mistake and you didn't do anything wrong. But it's a ketin type of dalam and aleph. But kan, the brayse says it's aser, and this also halacha l'maisa is lachatza acheres, is to a different courtyard that's nearby. That courtyard you're not allowed to throw it into. Which Taisa points out that although it says asal lahachzir, it doesn't mean take it back to you. It means a similar courtyard as yours. Then you're not allowed to put it into that other courtyard. As the Gemara concludes, as he actually asked the same question as we're giving these two different brayses explanation. If his hand was full of produce, and he stretches outside. So the question he asked him was, can you take it back to the courtyard that you were in? He says it's permitted. He says, what's the lachatza acheres ma? What's Allah? Can you take it now to a different courtyard? He says, he says, no, it's us. He says, what's the difference? Either one, you're stretching your hand out into, let's say, Rosh Hashanah. So we say that you're allowed to take your hand back. So what's different to your courtyard or to another courtyard? So he told him, what either that means to say is he was joking with him. He says, either when you measure for me a kur of salt, I'll tell you the explanation. Or another interpretation is, even if you would eat a kur of salt, which is tons of salt, you wouldn't be able to compare the two cases. Hasam over there, when it's the same courtyard, his intention, which was to clear it out from this courtyard, wasn't fulfilled. So therefore the Rabbanan weren't geyser because you didn't accomplish your goal. So it's not going to come to violate any problems. But here, when you take it to a different courtyard, your goal was accomplished because you got out of your domain. There the Rabbanan made a gezer, although in halacha it shouldn't be any different taking back to your courtyard or another courtyard, but we're concerned that if we would let you take it to a different courtyard, you might come to actually throw in the Rosh Hashanah. So therefore that's what we said, that it's going to be asur. So some ideas we spoke about in today's daf is that we continued the discussion of Haitzah, as we said that the Mishnah only counts 8 cases, but like we said, there are possibly more cases of 12 or 16, which as the chart illustrates, that we said that the Shtaim Shen Arba B'fnim, Shtaim Shen Arba B'chutz. And the problem is, like we said, there's really 12 cases. As we said, we were only counting the cases of the ones who were doing the Akira. We're saying those are Shehein Arba for the 2 of them. We're saying there's 2 of them for each one, for the Ani in Rosh Hashanah and for the Balabais in Rosh Hashanah. We added on another 4. The Gemara asks, what do you mean? There should actually be 8 Isur Drabanan. Because what's with the ones who were doing the other half of the Isur Drabanan? They were doing the Hanacha. So on that, the Gemara had asked, what do you mean? Why are you telling me that there's only, like we said, there's 2 times 2 for the one inside and the outside, that's 8. So he said that because there's 4 obligatory and 4 paturi, the question is, it's not 8, it's 12, like we said, these are hanachas of the ones of paturi. So the Gemara, on the Gemara's question, asked the question on the question. It says, what do you mean? So, don't ask this 12, ask that this 16. There's another 4 of exemptions of the ones of the opposite. When one is chayav chatas, because he did the kirin hanacha, what's with that other person? We said he's pater too, so why don't you add on those 4 to make it 16? So the Gemara answered, no. Pater and mutter, we didn't mention. I'm not mentioning the ones that didn't do anything at all. Now, though Shmuel says there's only 3 cases in Shabbos that you're pater and mutter, that means when you're doing an action. When you were totally passive, we don't have to tell you that it's going to be mutter. That we're not explaining. But what's with the fact that it's 12? So that the Gemara says that no, that's not difficult, because we only counted paturi de'aseh b'del chiyav chatas, meaning, like we said, that for this case, when we said for the 16, we said that no, pater mutter, that person's not doing anything at all. He's totally passive role. That we weren't counting at all. Now, for the other question, what's with the fact of the 12? Why is it only 8? Why isn't it 12? So on that, the Gemara says, because only the one, and we'll go with Rashi's interpretation, the ones that are doing the Akira, those are the ones that we're mentioning. Although the one who's doing the Hanacha is rabbinically prohibited, but we didn't mention them because you can't come to a Chiv of Chatas. We're not going to count these because they're not doing the Malacha, obviously, only doing half, so those we didn't count. Then we mentioned regarding the halacha of Shnaim Peturin. We said that when 2 people do malacha together, so one does the kir, one does the hanacha, they're going to be pater. The Gemara says, what do you mean? Between the 2 of them, they did a complete malacha. Why are they going to be pater? So that the Gemara said that there's a drasha of ba'asaisa, which is only when you do the whole malacha then you're going to be chayiv. But if you do it between two people, so then you're going to be pater. Now, the next Gemara qualifies regarding the Hagdara of Akira, which there's two cases that the Gemara talks about. Either when someone put stuff on you, which is chaver hetina, or let's say you put it on you took it on you from Erev Shabbos. So the Gemara's question was, is Akira's gufay Akira's chavetz mimkayim dami, and therefore you're going to be chayiv, or maybe not? Because on the one hand, he never did Akira, this guy picked it up. So all he's doing is, let's say, at the most hanacha. Or do you say that no, Akira's gufa is Akira's chavetz dami by picking up his body? So the Gemara answered, yes, you're chayiv. And wait, what do you do with the halacha of the Mishnah? Why, in this case of the Mishnah, did we say that both are going to be pater? Because he's doing the Akira, he's doing the hanacha. But wait a second. His hand, when he moves his hand, isn't that also the same thing? Isn't that a hanacha? Gemara says no, because the difference is that by the gufay, when his guf is naich, it's stationary. So therefore, that's going to be considered now an akira. His hand is fighting gravity. It's not stationary, and therefore it's still in transition from that person's akira. So therefore, we don't consider him as if he did an akira. At most, is that he did hanacha. Now, based on that Gemara that we said that the hand we don't view as the domain that it's from the person that it's in, so Abai says, I get it that it's not like Rosh Hashanah and not Rosh Hashanah. In other words, when he puts it to this domain, if the other person takes it from him, we don't see it as if he's taking from that person's domain. But then the Gemara's question was, what do you say regarding the halacha of if you stretched out your hand, now maybe you cannot take your hand back, because it's not like where your body is, so it's almost like in a different rabbinically prohibited area, like a carmelist, could you take your hand back or not? So the Gemara says, isn't that a machlekes and brises? You have one brise that says if you stretch out your hand full of produce outside, you not take your hand back. One says it's mutter. So isn't that exactly what they're disagreeing about? Do we consider like a carmelist, and therefore you can't take your hand back or not? And the Gemara says, no, both brises can be reconciled with either side of the shaila. As we brought, there's different interpretations that you could say it, either that one's within 10 tefachim, the other one's above 10 tefachim. One's talking about that you did it b'shagig, one's talking about that you did it b'mezid. That although that they did not make it into carmelist, but asl achzir would be that they penalized him for various reasons, and those would be the reasons why you can't take it back, and therefore it's not going to resolve the difficulty with the Gemara, because at one point the Gemara wanted to say that one interpretation was that everyone holds it's not like a carmelist, but it depends if you took it mishachashecha or somewhere here on this chart, but you took it mishachashecha or miba'idyoim. So the Gemara says that based on that, if you're saying that when you did it at nighttime, then you did something wrong, you can't take it back. If you did it during the daytime, then you could take it back. Well, it should say the opposite, because if you're saying that you cannot take your hand back from when it's nighttime, you might come to do a Issa D'Oraisa, and better not enforce the Rabbanan, and then come to Chiv D'Oraisa. Shouldn't that resolve Rabbi Bai's question, where Rabbi Bai is asking, could you take out the bread from the oven before it bakes? That answers his question. So the Gemara says yes, either that answers the question, or we have no different ways of resolving the brises, that either they're talking about one's shagi, one's mazid, or kanter shagi or mazid, or one's lois lachatza, or one is lachatza acheres. Those are different ways of resolving the brisa of why you're allowed to take your hand back or not. Therefore, that doesn't resolve Rabbi by his question regarding where you're going to do mishech hashecha, if you could go ahead and take your hand back or not. Thank you to any time for hosting us.